What if I told you that in 1943 the British military built a weapon that almost killed the people testing it? Not in battle, not behind enemy lines, on a beach in Devon in front of a film crew. This is not a movie. This is not a drill. This is what desperation looks like when the world's smartest engineers are given too much time, too much money, and not enough common sense. Today we're going into the classified archives of World War II. 5 weapons so insane, so expensive, and so completely real that history quietly buried them. Let's start with the wheel. By 1943, the Germans had built something called the Atlantic Wall. Over 2,700 miles of concrete bunkers, artillery, mines, and obstacles running along the entire western coast of Europe. The Allies needed to breach it, and the British had an idea. 2 massive wooden wheels connected by a central drum packed with explosives. Strap 70 rockets to the outside, roll it down the beach, watch it slam into the wall and detonate. Simple, brilliant. What could go wrong? Everything. Everything could go wrong. During the beach test in Westward Ho, the rockets began firing at different times. The Panjandrum started spinning in random directions. It headed straight for the film crew. Officers ran. Cameramen ran. Even the dog that had wandered onto the beach ran. The project was cancelled shortly after. The footage survived. History almost forgot it, until the internet found it. Now imagine you're Winston Churchill in 1942. German U-boats are sinking Allied ships faster than you can build them. You need aircraft carriers in the middle of the Atlantic, but you don't have enough steel. A man named Jeffrey Pike walks into your office with a solution. Build an aircraft carrier out of ice, not a small one, a 2,000-foot long fortress, 40-foot thick walls, large enough to carry 150 aircraft, and weighing 2.2 million tons. Churchill loved it. He immediately approved funding, because of course he did. They built a prototype on a lake in Alberta, Canada. And here's where it gets interesting. Pure ice kept cracking, so they invented an entirely new material, wood pulp mixed with ice, called pykrete. It was bulletproof, torpedo resistant. It barely melted. So why didn't they build it? Simple. The cooling system required to keep a 2 million ton ship frozen would have needed more steel than just building a normal aircraft carrier. They solved one problem and created an identical one. Project Habbakuk was cancelled in 1943. The prototype slowly melted into the lake. It's still there. In 1929, a German physicist named Hermann Oberth published a paper proposing something that sounds completely insane. A mirror. In space. 100 kilometers wide, that could focus the sun's rays onto a single point on Earth and burn entire cities to the ground. The Nazis found this paper, and they decided to take it seriously. By the early 1940s, German engineers at Hillersleben were actively researching what they called the Sonnengewehr, the sun gun. The plan was to build it in orbit 8,200 miles above Earth. Construction time estimated 50 to 100 years. 50 to 100 years, they were losing the war in 4. In 1945, American interrogators captured German scientists and asked them directly about the sun gun. The scientists confirmed it was real. They were proud of it. One reportedly said they just needed more time. Life magazine ran a full story on it in July 1945. The weapon was real. The ambition was real. The only thing that stopped it was that Germany ran out of war before they ran out of ideas. In 1941, a Pennsylvania dentist named Little Adams wrote a letter to the White House. He proposed strapping tiny incendiary bombs to Mexican free-tailed bats, loading thousands of them into a bomb casing, dropping it over Japan at dawn and letting them fly into buildings where the timers would go off and start fires simultaneously across an entire city. Franklin Roosevelt read this letter and approved it. The US Army spent $2 million and captured hundreds of thousands of bats across multiple tests. Early results were genuinely impressive. The bats could carry more explosive weight than expected and would naturally hide inside buildings exactly as planned. Then, during one test in New Mexico, some bats escaped, armed, and set fire to a US Air Force base. The project was quietly cancelled in 1944 when the Manhattan Project started looking more promising. Lytle Adams went to his grave insisting bat bombs would have been more effective than the atomic bomb, with fewer civilian casualties. Our final weapon comes from the man who invented behavioral psychology, B.F. Skinner, one of the most respected scientists of the 20th century. In 1943, Skinner approached the US military with Project Pigeon. The concept: place a trained pigeon inside the nose cone of a guided missile, display the target on a small screen. The pigeon, trained through conditioning, would peck at the image of the target, and its movements would steer the missile directly into it. The military tested it. The pigeons worked. Their accuracy was extraordinary. They could be trained in days and were completely immune to electronic jamming, because you cannot jam a pigeon. The military still cancelled it. Official reason: the concept was too outlandish to be trusted by a serious military establishment. Skinner tried to revive the project twice more. It was cancelled both times. He later called it one of his greatest failures. Not because the pigeons didn't work, but because no one would believe they did. 5 weapons, millions of dollars, some of the smartest minds in the world. A rocket wheel that attacked its own crew, an ice ship that melted, a solar death ray that needed a century, bats that bombed the wrong side, and pigeons that actually worked. World War II wasn't just won by tanks and bombs. It was shaped by every insane idea that almost made it, and a few that maybe should have. What would history look like if even one of these had worked? If you want more stories like this, the ones history almost forgot, subscribe, because we're just getting started.